The holiday season is known for bringing family and friends together and creating happy memories, but for some, holiday memories are surrounded by tragedy.
This month, we will be sharing one unsolved missing person story every single day. We hope sharing their stories will help bring them home for the holidays. Teresa Lynn Woolard was the baby of the family. Her oldest two siblings were adopted because the parents thought they couldn't have children on their own. A few years later, a baby girl was born, and then a bit later, very quickly actually, with less than 2 years later, Teresa was born. They lived in a small town near Flint, Michigan. They were all a close knit, happy family. They lived in the country and spent a lot of time outside when they were children. Teresa was described as a very outgoing and a sporty girl. She would play softball with her siblings. She didn't love school and had to work hard to maintain her average grades. She did go to college and studied something to do with children. I believe she wanted to either own her own daycare or it could have been like a child psychologist type degree. The three sisters were thick as thieves and would do most things together. Teresa would eventually marry a man by the name of Scott, but they would only stay married for a few years without having any children. She got married for the second time. His name was Randy. They had two daughters, Miranda and Nicole. The couple would be married for a while, but would eventually divorce. The cause of this was that Teresa started hanging out with the wrong crowd and was dealing with an addiction to prescription drugs, which eventually turned into harder drugs when she couldn't get the pills legally any longer. The pill addiction started when Teresa was in a very bad car wreck and she was prescribed these narcotics. And this is a story over and over again. Doctors prescribe these heavy duty narcotics and people get addicted to them very quickly. And then they are left shattered. This battle she was fighting led her to spend the family's entire savings account and her daughter's college fund.
Oh, my.
Yes. This was the breaking point for her husband, Randy, when he couldn't help her with her struggles any longer. He did contact Teresa's family to help her as well, letting them know what was going on, because at this point, everyone was in the dark that Teresa had this problem. They were able to get her to go to rehab for the very first time, but it definitely would not be the last. Over the next decade, she was in and out of inpatient programs just trying to beat this addiction disease. Teresa Woolard was 48 years old and had two teenage daughters in 2016 when she went missing. She was living in Kings Lane Apartments off of Hemp Hill Road in Burton, Michigan. Her sister would describe these apartments as run down and a known drug hub. However, she was just getting on her feet from her last time in rehab, and her mother was actually paying her deposit to get into these apartments. Teresa texted one of her daughters sometime in the early morning hours of December 11th of 2016, and then this part is a little bit confusing because it's never been confirmed, which I do not know how it hasn't been confirmed, but there apparently was reports of a 911 call that was made not from Teresa, but from a male saying that there was a domestic dispute going on in Teresa's apartment. This person has never been identified. 911 call has never been released, and I don't think police have ever confirmed it actually happened, which is weird because typically that's not an issue of release.
Yeah.
Anyways, police do go to her apartment to check things out, possibly because of the 911 call. When they arrive, no one is at her apartment. Neighbors state that they saw Teresa walking away with a man. Police check in the general direction and they find nothing. They do check in dumpsters, they check alleyways, that type of thing. Very quick search. They don't find anything. All that happens with them. So eventually, a friend of the family goes over to the apartment when the daughters can't get a hold of their mother. And this friend of the family finds Teresa's purse and her bus pass that she always had on her. It was found inside the apartment. All right. Then her ex husband, Randy, he tries to file a missing persons report. So he has custody of the daughters. The daughters are very concerned. Plus, he loved Teresa and obviously wants her found. So he tries to file a missing persons report on the 12th. But police told him he needed to wait a little while longer and that she would turn up. I'm sure they probably looked at her rap sheet and they're like, oh no, we're not going to do it. How
Let's not
often?
waste our resources.
Exactly. How many times have they done this? All the time. Finally, 2 days later, her sister and her mom actually got the missing persons report. I do want to mention that the last person Teresa was with, the man that she was seen walking away from the property with, was also named Randy. All right. To me, Randy's not a common name, but could have been back at this time. This guy was also in the drug scene and he had a lengthy criminal record. Teresa's phone would ping in a neighboring town that night. This was not in the direction she was traveling, according to the neighbors who saw her leave in that direction. And it was probably too far for her to walk. This was like 15 miles away. And she didn't have a vehicle. So either someone drove her there. But over the following 2 months, her phone would ping in downtown Lapeer, Michigan and Davison, Michigan. None of the neighbors really wanted to get involved once the police started investigating Teresa's disappearance. This is a known crime area, lots of drugs being passed around. These neighbors were not ones that were going to come forward and assist the police in any typical way. There was another guy that was brought in for questioning, and this is because he threatened Teresa the day before she went missing. So this is how this went down. Teresa was with this counselor lady, and she was going to visit her daughter in the hospital. I don't know if this is like a social worker or something like that had to do with, but Teresa is in the vehicle with this counselor. Teresa gets a call from a man, and obviously she's sitting right next to the counselor, so I'm sure the counselor can hear pretty much everything. He's going off on Teresa about owing him money. Nothing really came from this interview. He just stated that they were friends. He didn't even know she was missing. But what is weird is that this guy never called her again. So apparently, even though he states he didn't know she was missing, he just gave up getting the money that she owed him, which is very suspicious, if you ask me. He obviously was so concerned about the money that the day before to scream at her about getting him the money she owed. And then he just, forgets all about it. Oh, she's missing. Oh, that's such a surprise.
Yeah, how convenient.
Exactly. This is honestly all we really know about Teresa's disappearance. She is described as a Caucasian female, blonde hair, blue eyes. She's about 5'4", 5'5", 110 pounds. Her hair was dyed at the time of her disappearance. The natural color of her hair is like a graying brown, but if she's still out there, she could be dyeing it blonde. She has a linear scar on her abdomen, a tattoo of a smiley face on her hip, a tattoo of flowers and barbed wire on her upper thigh. Her ears are pierced. If you have any information about Teresa's disappearance, please contact the Burton Police Department at 810-244-1545.